Hello and welcome to Talk Ag to Me, the podcast dedicated to improving ag literacy around the globe. And also, welcome to 2020. You see, with a new decade, there's also a lot of things coming down the pipeline in terms of agriculture, politics, and just overall life in really the whole world. So I wanted to make this video as kind of an update to talk about things to come for both Talk Ag to Me and new projects I'm working on, as well as what that means for you guys and how you can help with some of these projects. To break it down, first of all, Talk Ag to Me is not going anywhere. I know I haven't been quite as active lately, but that's mostly because I've been re-uploading all of my old episodes on other podcasting platforms, as well as trying to work up the database of how exactly I can do new and exciting episodes for you guys and also cover relevant and recent information. And quite frankly, I just haven't been able to get the resources together to do new episodes with new and different guests all the time, and it's been kind of difficult. So that it will be changing with 2020. I have some new episodes already planned out, and some of them I could use your guys' help for. For example, I really want to focus more on consumers in the next year with Talk Ag to Me. I really want to focus on consumer concerns and really having conversations with both halves of the equation here. Because for the last year and a half I've been doing this show, I've mostly been focusing on agriculture's perspective on all of the issues facing our industry, which is great and needs to be done, don't get me wrong, but I really want to focus on the whole purpose we're starting this in the first place, ag literacy. And it's great that we're talking to farmers and other people in the ag industry about the ag industry, but it doesn't really do a whole lot of good if nobody's listening. So that's why I'm focusing a lot of my attention towards consumers in the next few episodes and hopefully for the rest of the year in Talk Ag to Me. And don't get me wrong, I'll still be doing interviews with other farmers and agricultural professionals. That's never going to change because I can't help myself. I love doing it. But I really want to focus on getting more consumer interviews in, having more conversations and even live streams with other consumers and people who really aren't as attached to the agriculture industry as a lot of the fan base and interviewers of this podcast are. So that's kind of my first request, is if you know anyone who knows next to nothing or maybe knows a little bit but is disconnected from agriculture that would be more than willing to have a conversation about this topic, feel free to contact me in any way necessary on social media, through my email. It's talkagtome@gmail.com. As on comments on YouTube videos, just DM me on Instagram, message me on Facebook, whatever you need to do, get a hold of me, and I'd be more than happy to have a conversation with anybody about agriculture, because that's the purpose of this podcast, is to have the conversations flowing instead of just me talking in an echo chamber about something that we all agree is a good thing. And so that kind of brings me to my next subject, is that agriculture, don't get me wrong, is a strong passion of mine, but there are other passions of mine that I'd like to pursue. For example, public speaking and communications are kind of a big deal to me, and being more vocal about certain topics in social media and just in everyday life with those around us is a very, very important skill that I find valuable and that I want to help others find valuable as well. And this inspired me to actually start a new project, a public speaking and communications-based project that's going to have multiple layers and multiple parts to it. But to find out about that, you can go check out my new podcast coming out, and it's known as Gambit's Survival Guide to Public Speaking. You can actually find a link for it right up here. I'll have a little picture of the cover art right there. You can just click on that. It'll take you straight to the YouTube channel of Gambit's Survival Guide to Public Speaking. There you can find our intro video, and it'll be talking about what kind of topics we'll be covering, the overall project as a whole, talking about the different clubs we're going to be doing, the research we're going to be hosting, the different topics of conversation we're going to be having on the actual podcast, and all the intricacies of that as a whole. And so that's a really exciting project that I really can't wait to get started. And it's something that I've been working on for a little while, but just haven't really had the time or resources or energy to really invest in getting that thing started up. So that one's kind of a unique one because it takes a lot of different aspects of my interests and of concerns I've seen with kids that I've worked with, and really even adults I've worked with in the public speaking sphere, that just kind of culminate all together into one collective database of how we can effectively eradicate fear, nervous tendencies, and boost confidence and knowledge when it comes to public speaking. And not just that, how to have more constructive conversations about various topics and issues that we find controversial or that we tend to avoid just because we don't have to deal with the headache of annoying people that don't know what they're talking about. So I'm going to be covering all of that in, like I said, the survival guide, and make sure you click on that link and go check that one out. So that's the first new project that's going to be coming up. The second project I'm working on is kind of a more casual one. It's one that I've been wanting to work on for a long time, and it's one that a couple of my friends are going to be helping me with, and it's called A Tale to the West. You can actually, or A Tale of the West, excuse me. And you can actually find that podcast over here with this link that's going to be taking you to that YouTube channel as well. And A Tale of the West is, like I said, it's a very casual podcast. It's mostly just me and a couple of my friends sitting around a table and just talking about pretty much anything and everything. We have kind of interesting, thought-provoking conversations pretty frequently, and the more I have them, the more I think, wow, I wish other people could hear us talk about this. And so that's kind of the whole platform of it as a whole, is just some way for us to just sit down and vent out whatever it is we're thinking about that day, whether it be the entirety of Western civilization to who, how's your finals going, or what'd you get for Christmas this year, or country music artists, or any music as a topic, anything. I mean, it could be the possibilities for topics are pretty endless with that format, and the advantage to it is it's not going to be a consistent weekly podcast like Talk Academy or like the Speaking Guide is going to be. It's going to be more laid back, more casual, and kind of just fun for us to do. And if you guys enjoy it, we really hope you do, then I'd appreciate you guys showing some more attention to that one as well, because it's kind of just a fun project we want to work on. And it's more than anything, just a fun way to have conversations about stuff that interests us. It could be about talking about the new show on Disney Plus, or something that one of our professors said at school that kind of rubbed us the wrong way, or it could be anything. And don't get me wrong, we are going to try to avoid saying things that we know are going to cause us issues. We're not going to try to start drama or spill the tea or whatever you want to say about it, because that's not the purpose of the podcast. It's more just for us to have fun and talk. But that being said, we're not going to avoid politics. We're not going to avoid controversial issues. We're going to talk whatever we want, and we're going to obviously try to avoid bringing up offensive language or anything like that, but it's mostly just going to be us talking about what we're interested in. So that's kind of another thing I wanted to work on. So those are the two main projects that I'm working on right now. So getting back to Talk Academy, we'll cover those two projects again in a little bit. But as far as Talk Academy goes, the consumers is kind of a big concept I really want to focus on. That's going to be my main goal for 2020, is focusing more on the ag literacy aspects of Talk Academy and less on the ag issues. Don't get me wrong, I care about the ag issues, I do, and they're all extremely important. And every chance I get, I would like to shed some more light on a lot of the issues that consumers just don't hear enough about. But my concern is that these consumers aren't going to hear about them anyway if they're not being pulled into the conversation. If they just have to listen to us talk about it, then they're not going to be engaged at all. And that's not a good thing. If you want them to hear about these issues, you have to engage them in the conversation yourself. And that's going to be the main project, or the main focus of the next year to come, is bringing these consumers into the conversation, and not forcing them, but encouraging them to take a part in these important matters. So that being said, I would still appreciate any recommendations on episode topics, on interview people, on really anything, what I should cover in terms of where I should go to do some of these interviews. I mean, there's endless possibilities as to the feedback I would appreciate from you guys, but that's just kind of the direction I want to start pushing Talk Academy more towards, and then that's kind of the best direction I think the podcast could go in at this point, because that's kind of the other rut I've been stuck in, is not knowing where I want the podcast to go. I mean, I've done interviews with all the people I can think of, and I'm constantly getting more contacts, so I will be having more interviews come out as time goes on, but there's only so many topics that you can talk about before you start to run low on big ideas in ag. I mean, there's still topics I haven't done episodes on that I would love to, and don't get me wrong, I will cover those, but I really want to focus on kind of the roots of the podcast as a whole, and that's ag literacy. I mean, like I said, and I've said it a million times, the whole purpose of the podcast is to show that social media can be used as a tool to help agriculture. It's not just for me to talk to farmers and learn more about their perspectives and what they're going through. And not that I don't enjoy that part, it's one of my favorite parts, but it's just not what I wanted the podcast to be initially. And so I will get back to the issues eventually, towards the end of the year probably, but I really, really want to push hard on this ag literacy thing, because it's something that I kind of lost track of whenever I started the podcast. I started it with intentions of going towards ag literacy, started out that way, and kind of tapered off when I saw the the glory that is learning more about the ag industry, and that's my fault. And I'm not saying that was a bad choice. It was definitely a great thing and helped out the podcast a lot, but now it needs to go in the direction that it was originally intended to going in. So that's my 2 cents on that issue. So just expect more ag literacy and consumer concern based episodes from here on out for a little while. That being said, though, I'm still going to be doing a lot of ag community stuff. I'm still going to the World Ag Expo and doing episodes on that and doing interviews there, and I may even have a booth, and we'll cover more of that as the time gets closer. But we're definitely still going to do an interview with one of the members of the World Ag Expo team and talk to them about the expo this year, talk about what to expect and what you should really look out for. So that's going to be a big deal. I have other farmer friends and professionals in the ag industry that I can definitely interview and get good topics on. So I'm going to be doing that as well. I already have a few episodes lined out that I've been meaning to do for a while, so I'm just going to knock those out of the way. But the vast majority of my episodes in 2020 are going to be based around ag literacy. So just kind of keep that in mind as we go forward with this. But that being said, there's a lot that's going to be changing in 2020. There's so much that we're going to have to adjust towards that I want to cover with you guys in episodes. No matter what podcast it's on, I will be covering pretty much everything I can, especially if it relates to agriculture, and I'm going to be pushing that as heavily as I can. I'm going to try to be on top of things. I'm not going to be a reporter reporting on the newest thing that's happening in the ag world right now, but if a new bill gets passed or a new regulation, or if things change with the water situation in California, you best believe I'm going to be covering it as soon as I possibly can, as long as I can get a good resource to interview about it. And that's kind of the other thing. I've always had the policy that I'm willing to talk to anyone about agriculture if they want to talk, and that's always going to remain true. But there's a difference between me covering an issue, or me and a friend of mine covering an issue, and having a professional actually talk about the issue using professional knowledge about that issue. So I'm going to be focusing more on not necessarily avoiding issue-based topics, but trying to hold off on doing them until I can find someone that's very qualified and very knowledgeable about the topic before I just delve into it and give my 2 cents and be completely wrong about it. So that's just more of a control thing in terms of the information I'm providing, because I always fear that I'm going to say something on the podcast, or my guest is going to say something and it being correct, and then somebody else goes out there and spreads that information, and we just start spreading false information everywhere, because that's kind of what we're trying to avoid here. So I'm going to focus on getting more credible, and all of my guests so far have been extremely credible. I don't say that they haven't. I just fear that I'll be interviewing a student one day and the student will say something about an issue that isn't entirely factually correct, and then that'll go into my credibility as being, that came from Talk Ag to me, so it must be true, and I don't want that to be on my record. So I'd rather have the professional say something first and then have an analysis episode afterwards with a student and talk about what the professional said. And that'd be probably the most advantageous way to make sure we don't have misinformation spread, and that we have an actual intellectual conversation about the topics we're going to be covering. So I know that was a lot of information right at once, but I really just wanted to cover all of this because it's been a while since I've done a new episode of Talk Ag to Me. And that's mostly because I've been working on the public speaking project at Tale of the West. Obviously, school and work come into play as well. My family always takes priority. And so I really want to get back into the swing of things, of focusing on Talk Ag to Me as my number one priority again. But just know that I'm not going to be focusing on what we used to do episodes on quite as heavily. I would appreciate if you guys would recommend new episodes for me to do as usual, but I'd also appreciate it more if you guys could recommend me people to talk to that don't have as much experience in the ag industry, because those are going to be way more fun conversations than listening to a scientist from the USDA talk about soil. And I don't mean that as a shot at the scientist from the USDA interview, because that was actually a really interesting interview and I loved every aspect of it. I'm just saying that the average consumer is going to find more interest in seeing their family or friends on a podcast than listening to some scientists that they don't know talk about something that they don't care about or don't know why they should care about. So it's more just a tactic to try to spread ag literacy as fast and as effectively as possible, rather than trying to get away from the actual content of the episodes, because that's not what I'm trying to do. But that being said, I think that is my final say on where Talk Academy is going. I know that there's a lot of new stuff coming down the pipeline, and I've said that a million times already, I know. But as stuff comes out, I'll be covering it. So don't worry about that issue. My Ag Issues episodes aren't going away at all. My interviews aren't going away. I think that it'd be healthiest for the podcast to go in a different direction than it's currently going at the rate it's going. So that being said, I'd like to thank all of you so much for your support. I'd like to congratulate you on making it to 2020, and somehow we all survived with everything crazy going on in the country right now. And I'm not gonna get political. It's just that everyone kind of can agree that things are a little insane right now. But hey, we're toughing it out, and I think that's awesome. So that being said, make sure you go and check out the 2 new podcasts. I hope to see you over there, and I'm really excited for these projects. And by the way, if you or anyone you know wants to be part of an episode on any of the 3 podcasts, feel free to get in contact with me. On Talk Academy, obviously, I have the social media platforms I mentioned earlier. You can contact me through any of those. You can email me at talkacademy@gmail.com. You can contact me on any of the social medias through DM or message, whatever. Same goes for the survival guide. The actual the YouTube channel, I believe, is called Gambit Survival Guide to Public Speaking, or it could be Gambit Speaking Academy, and either one of those it'll show up probably. But the contacts for those are the same thing. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter are all Gambit Speaking Academy, and the email for that is gambitspeech@gmail.com. And then for A Tale of the West, it's A Tale of the West for everything. Tale of the West for Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, A Tale of the West @gmail.com. I think it's, or is it taleofwest@gmail.com? Something like that. I'll put it in the description of this video, unless you're watching this on iTunes or somewhere else, in which I'll probably put it in the description somewhere. But yeah, that's all I have. I hope you guys have a fantastic new year, and thank you so much for all your support and all of your help in getting this far. I really did not expect it to blow up as much as it did, and I know that we're still kind of a small group, but I've made tremendous strides in the past year and a half, and I'm extremely proud of what I've done, and I'm extremely grateful for all the help and support that I've gotten from pretty much all of you. So thank you again for all of that, and don't forget, if you ate today, thank a farmer.